All right, are we good to go?
You are good to go.
We got to figure this thing out.
You get so awkward.
It is awkward. It is very awkward. Welcome to the Open Homes Initiative podcast, where it's our hope to come alongside foster, kinship, and adoptive families as they're discovering and holding on to their why. One of our hopes with this podcast is to make entering into the foster care arena accessible to everyone. We don't believe that everybody needs to be a foster parent, but we do believe that everybody could do something. And those somethings could be something really, really small, like making a meal for somebody else, or sharing a story, being willing to take a call, watching a kid during a sporting event. Just a number of aspects, a number of areas, a number of ways that people can get involved to just show that these individual stories matter. Your story matters to God, and your story matters to us. My name is Justin. I'm a local pastor, and I've been a foster parent for over 7 years. I have 3 bio kids of my own, and excited to get into a new podcast here, just telling stories, sharing life experiences of other people that are on this foster care, adoptive, kinship journey. And I'm joined today with my wife, Chelsea. And tell us a little bit about you.
I have 3 teenage girls currently. Started fostering back into, really it starts in 2016, I guess our journey begins, because it took a few years before we actually jumped into fostering. Just kind of felt a conviction to, at very least, just get some more information about it. And so went to informational meetings, had an awareness then of the need, but knew we had 3 kids under 6, I think, at the time.
Yeah, somewhere around there, 6 or 8.
So it was like, there's no way. And we had a very small house, so there was no way we were going to be fostering at that time. Started in 2016, and by 2018, we had helped start a foster closet with a partnership with College Hills Baptist Church. Yep. And Rhiannon Kelso there, who leads and heads that up, still to this day is still running. And so we started there, and then in 2018, God kind of led us down a crazy journey of walking through a church plant residency, moving to a new house when neither one of us had jobs, actually.
Mm-hmm. It was a crazy journey.
Not really sure how that happened. And I had remembered I had made a deal with God, if you're allowed to do that, and said, if you give us a bigger house someday, I will foster, and we will open our home to whoever you ask us to. And in 2018, he moved us to a bigger home.
Yeah, that was crazy. The moving to a bigger home. She made a deal with him, and we ended up selling our home that was only 1,600 square foot, and for the same price, bought a home that was 2,400 square foot. And so
that was when the market was really good.
It was nice.
Interest was low
then, but it was undoubtedly the Lord moving us into that, and in some ways opening that road for us.
Yeah, and all within a matter of a couple of years, really in a matter of a year, from 2017, 2018, we were in a church plant residency, moved houses, pulled the kids from public school, and began homeschooling. And all at the same time, God was like, oh, yeah, you're also going to start fostering. Because remember that deal you made me? So we did. And we started taking the actual steps to become licensed. And, here we are, 2025, and 15 kids later have come through our home.
As of, Friday, this last week. So we were 6 days into having 2 kids under the age of 3.
Yes.
After not having any kids under the age of 3 for quite some time.
Years,
so I think our oldest, how did she describe that yesterday at dinner? The house is loud.
Yeah.
Is that what she said?
Yeah, it's louder.
Something along that way. So how's the last few days been? Well, it's louder. Was her.
Yep.
And to say, I think when I picked him up from daycare yesterday and I asked how it went, and they said, well, he is curious. That was the word they used.
He's sweet as can be, but he is into everything.
He is curious, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And so that's our story. We're about 7-8 years in, and we've had 15 different kids come through the house. Short a time span is 6 days, all the way up to 18 months of caring for a kid and having the joy of seeing her go back home to dad, and seems to be thriving today. We've had kids that we get to enjoy remaining in contact with. And then we've had kiddos that we just don't have an idea where they are. But we trust that the Lord loves them even more than we do, and that He's working all things for their good. That's our story. So let's talk a little bit about the hopes for the podcast. What is it that we want to do with this podcast? Where is it we want to go? What are we going to hope to achieve by this? And so the goal for this podcast is going to be to share stories is really the goal. We love the idea that our story, that your story matters to God. And in doing so, matters to us. And so we want to share stories of foster, kinship, adoptive care, and shed light on the crisis that is the current system and the real life people and the real life stories in the mix. We want to put names and faces to numbers and statistics and here within our local community. And so that's kind of the goal. Yeah, so we have the opportunity to do that. What's some of your heart behind wanting to do this podcast or getting this going?
Just like you said, I think it helps us, kind of brings an awareness to others, hopefully, especially here in West Texas and in San Angelo and Tom Brin County. I mean, all of the stories that hopefully we share on this podcast will be local families just like us who are walking or have walked this journey. And I think it helps our neighbors to just go, oh, wow, they're just everyday people like us. And if everyday people like us next door can do this, I can too. And that's really the goal, right, of Open Homes Initiative. And this podcast is just to say, hey, man, we need more open homes, and anybody can do that.
That's key. And so then another question that kind of gets asked in that is there's so many podcasts that are out there. How are we going to be different? What's going to make this podcast different? You listen to a lot more podcasts than I do, at least on this front. I heard another podcaster just recently talk about his favorite genre of book is audio and podcasts. And so that's kind of where I am. My kids make fun of me all the time because they get in the car and there's never music playing. There's usually a book or old man radio or a podcast going. But in the foster care arena, you've definitely explored more of the podcast. So what do you think is going to make this one different?
I mean, I think the one that's going to set this apart mainly is the proximity, the locality of the stories, because this might get heard maybe by, I would hope a few hundred, but maybe more than that, and maybe even beyond this city or this county or even this state. But the hope is that, again, that these are real people that we all interact with day in and day out, that we work with, that our kids go to school with. And we just want it to be very real and authentic and give a place for people to be inspired and encouraged, even amongst the hard and the difficult, to know that this is good and worth it. And there is a space and a place and a reason to get involved that anybody can. And I think just the proximity of it and knowing, oh my gosh, these are people who live right here with us. And so I think that's going to set this particular one apart. It's not going to be anything probably crazy, and we're not going to have a ton of like practical maybe help per se, but just something that goes, man, other people are walking this road. You're not alone in it.
That's
and
real.
It's real, and it is hard, but it is so good, and it's so worth it. And if we can just share and shed some light on that aspect of it, then I think it's a win.
I think that's key. I'm excited to get into it because as we've walked this road for the last, like we said, 7-8 years, we've gotten to hear story after story. And when you start to include the adoptive stories in this, it's amazing just how many people around our community are affected and involved in foster care, but even through that, just adoption and kinship care. And so the stories are going to be, just incredible. I'm excited to get into those, and the fact that we've got something local to share, that we've got our neighbors that are right here to walk through. Yeah. And so
tell me about Open Homes Initiative. What is it, and what was kind of the desire that evolved that made you want to start a whole nonprofit on top of everything else we have going on?
On top of planting a church, on top of fostering, on top of you homeschooling, on top of running businesses, on top of all these things. Why Open Homes? Essentially, what we wanted to do with Open Homes was to build a nonprofit that came alongside the local system, essentially that wanted to, or that was designed to recruit and retain foster families. Okay. being in this game long enough, we've seen plenty come into it and plenty leave. And there's tons of statistics we could throw out. Everybody kind of gets bored with those. But the bigger thing is we just want to shed light on this demographic, that there are kids right here in our neighborhood, right here in our own backyard that in many ways are just falling through the cracks, or that seem to be forgotten, or that people think because of media or because of other entertainment stories that it would be too difficult to enter into their own stories. And so because of that, it's said that foster care is one of those things the majority of the population knows about, is vaguely aware of, but only 22% have actually seriously considered getting involved. Yeah. And so there's a wide number of people who, if they would just understand the needs that are here, that I think would be willing to open some homes, would be willing to get involved, would be willing to sacrifice of self, that these kiddos might be cared for. And so our hope really with Open Homes is to bring awareness to the foster care arena, to help dispel some of the myths that are out there, to shed light on a population that is often forgotten, and to demonstrate, whether through ourselves or through these stories, how engaging in this work is actually able to affect so many other societal problems that many of us care about as well. And so that's one of the reasons that we kind of started Open Homes, was to just get the word out, to recruit and to retain. And so there's a number of ways. But
it didn't always look as formal. Like, it didn't always look like a nonprofit. Like, we just started that in 2024.
We officially started that in 2024, but the heart and the burden that developed it came long before that. And so do you want to expound on some of that? What's our heart behind it?
When we were fostering, I think it was just kind of this reality of like, oh my gosh, there really is no support here for foster parents. And I think it's not for maybe a lack of trying, or even that the system just
not necessarily even no support, but even disjointed support.
And not even, I think, because the system necessarily wants to completely neglect foster parents, but it's certainly not a system that's built around or for foster parents. It seems like it's just, you are a part of it, but you're just one aspect, and there's so many other pieces to it that...
And we use the terminology all the time. You're given full accountability, full responsibility, but no control, is what it feels like.
100% authority.
There it is.
And 0%, or what did we say? Sorry. No. It's like 100% responsibility and 0% authority. That's what a foster parent's job is. You're like, cool, I have no say in pretty much anything, but you want me to care for these kids. And just feeling a lack of understanding, a lack of being known. And so basically we said, you know what, we can't let others feel like this. So we just started a support group. I think there had been some in the past that had kind of fizzled out. And so we just literally, I think we started meeting in 2023 with 6 families, including ourselves. 6 people who were gathered around a table. One of our local churches that we partner with, St. Angelo First, hosted our very first support group. They still host it several months, and so
off and on, along with 4 others. We rotated around churches, but they were still one of those churches.
They were one of the first ones to jump in and say, "Yeah, we'll host that." And so 6 families gathered around the table, had pizza because it's cheap and you can feed a lot of kids. And
we still have pizza because it's cheap, and I'm cheap.
And we just were able to share, like, wow, where did we come from? What are we doing? Why are we in this? And thank God we're not the only crazy people, because like you feel like part of it. You feel like, I'm crazy. Why am I still doing this? You know? And what we've seen from that, well, since now moving in 2025, we have 20 families or more joining us every month. We have more than just one gathering. We have 4 different opportunities for parents and families and moms and dads to gather and just share life, and with people, like-minded people on the same journey, walking this very hard and difficult road. And so that's how it all began, really. And then slowly, I think over the last couple of years, we've realized, wow, like, people love this, right? They want this. It's meeting a need, but even more so, I think there's some other ways we can love on this community. And so we kind of started...
I think in the midst of the support groups, right, one of the taglines that you'll hear us say over and over, because we're doing stories, right, is people actually begin to feel like their story mattered. And we've seen a number of them be able to share their story with a new foster family, or share their story in a specific situation that makes them go, oh, wait, hold on, there's a reason that I've gone through this, and I'm able to encourage others in the midst of it. And so the stories and the life that has been shared has definitely, and you mentioned in there the idea of why do I do that? Like, why do I keep coming back to this? And that's another thing that we as a organization want to do, is help people discover if they haven't found that. That's part of the recruiting aspect. We want to recruit and retain, so we want to help them discover their why and to hold on to that why.
Hold on to it, yeah, because a lot of families, I think you've said it before, like, 50%, probably more, quit fostering after the first year.
First placement, first year.
Or after the first placement.
Yep.
That might have been 3 weeks, and they're done.
And they said no.
And so it's very much like what we have seen through that support is these families are staying in the game.
Yes.
And they may not even be fostering. Maybe they adopted and they've closed their home, but they're still coming to support group.
Yep.
Because they go, wow, you know what? Just because you adopt a child doesn't mean all of a sudden, like, oh, well, everything's fine and I don't need the same support as I did before.
Yes.
If anything, I need more.
Yep.
This is difficult. The state's now pulled away, and it's just us, and we're just here.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, that's freeing, and in other ways, it's very
It's nice not to have the paperwork.
Yeah.
But to not
Thank God
have,
for no paperwork, but to not have any kind of support
the extra
around.
support. Yes.
So people are coming and yeah, just
it is. So yeah, if you look at our
sticking
support group, just in that, if the normal statistic is that half of all foster families get out after their first placement and or first year, all of our families, every single family that has come and got involved in the support group has taken at least 2 to 3 placements, and only one is no longer fostering since we started. And that's 2 years in. And so that's an incredible statistic when you just start to think that 50% actually grows to 90% staying in if a local church or if an organization will come around them.
And wraps around.
90% of the time, they'll still be involved 2 years later, not just one. And so we're actually seeing that play out now that we're 2 years in. We've also got 5 churches, like we said, partnering to host this support group. So we get to rotate it around the city. We get to use different denominations. We get to see just a wider effort all coming together.
Yeah, truly community-based care, which is what the state of Texas is trying to move to, is like the community actually caring for the children that are there. And it's like, that's what San Angelo is doing. It's doing it in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different pockets, and OHI gets to be a part of that and be a partner with it in different ways. So
yeah, and as our families have continued, we've gotten to move not just from fostering and kinship, but now we do a lot of post-adopt care. We've probably half of our families in the support group now are post-adopt that have recently adopted. About last week? Was it last Monday? I think we got a text and a picture while we were at a conference of a local family that has been struggling through an adoption story that over the last 6 months has seen an actual adoption date come to fruition and then get shifted within moments, within hours, within a day or two of the actual adoption day, and it gets pushed back. And so 6 months later, we got a text that said, this happened really fast, and within 24 hours, we got notified, and we've officially adopted, and we're sitting there in a conference, and I show Chelsea this picture
I lost it.
and this text, and she just breaks down. And I said, well, the music's just really good. That's what it is. But
I was like, oh my gosh. It was just, it was really sweet to go, wow. Yeah, and that's a family that stuck it out. And it's like, this is hard. And I could have easily given up and like, forget this, right? Like, it's not worth it. But to them, it was worth it. And it's sweet resolution, sweet resolution to that family. Yep. So all that to say, and this is just something I'm going off on a tangent, but all of our children that have come through our home specifically, a lot of our support group has ended in adoption for those families, but ours hasn't. That hasn't been.
That's not our story.
That's not our story. That's not how God's written it, and that's not in the cards for us.
We went in with the idea. Our goal as a family was not to enter into fostering to adopt. Right? There's nothing wrong with entering into fostering to adopt. We would encourage anybody listening that is interested in adopting to consider going through the foster care route. But our reason for getting in was essentially because the same mindset, their story matters. Our story matters, their story matters, and we want to enter in and play whatever part we can to be a stopgap, to be a safe place in the midst of a time for their family to be able to be healing and to come alongside those families, the bio families, in whatever way we can to help walk them back to health. And so I think in the Lord's graciousness, of our 15 that have come through, 2 are still in the home right now, and only one, is that right? Only one has actually been adopted. And we knew that one the moment we took her home from the hospital, the moment that you spent Mother's Day in a hospital.
But that was sweet too, just the way that the Lord made those connections happen and used us in a moment to say yes to taking her in, knowing we may not be her forever yes. Really sweet way that that's probably a story for another time. But
it's probably one that we'll do a podcast on.
Yeah, one child that has come through our home that's actually been adopted out. All the others have been reunified.
Yep.
And for the most part, I would say we were on board with that. And
even for months after, Mom or Dad would text and call. And I mean, on Father's Day this last year, I get a call from one of the girls, right? She's at home with Dad, but she still calls.
Yeah, and told you Happy Father's Day. Yeah. And not all of it is like, oh, yeah, I'm super happy and for this. But I think all that just goes back to, kind of our standpoint as a family of going, in the end, for us, it was about the sovereignty of God, that He's in control. And at the end of the day, I'm not. The state makes sure of that. And but He is, and He's got His hand on them. And so even in the ones that maybe I didn't feel super comfortable with them going back home, I knew that regardless, they were going to be just fine because He's got His eye on them. And so
He loves them far more than we ever will.
Yeah. So those are all stories for other times, I know. But
those are, that's okay. That's a good tangent. So we're talking about OHI. We are designed, what we've built this around is recruiting and retaining foster families. So everything we just touched on is a lot of the retaining aspect, the support groups, the church involvement to host that, the way that we've interacted with one another, the way that we've moved into post-adoptive support and resources. But on the recruiting side, that's where you mentioned we just recently started to expand OHI. We're now an actual nonprofit. We're partnered alongside the foster closet that we just mentioned. And so we're expanding a lot of what we do. And so we did that starting in 2024. So we're about a year in to really broadening our impact. And so from there, the goal is on the recruiting side to begin partnering with churches to increase community awareness. We planted a church 7 years ago, and because we believe that the church is God's primary mission strategy to reach the lost and dying world. And so we believe that through that, the local church is also able to move into the darkest and most forgotten segments of our society. And we're the most equipped people, we're the most likely people to walk into that, to enter into stories that most people have no desire to walk into. Yeah. And so
that's what the Lord does to us, right? He's like, this is difficult and hard and very broken, and I'm going to run towards you in that. I'm not going to run away from you in that. And that's what the church as believers should be doing, is running towards people in their difficultness and in their brokenness and saying, man, I see you right where you are, and guess what, I'm broken too, and so we're going to be broken together. And we're going to run towards you though, and embrace you and embrace that and try to support that. So that's our major recruiting effort, is we run into churches, or we go to the local church and we say, hey, can we come alongside you? Can we help equip you to push back darkness in this segment of San Angelo? Can we come alongside you to push back darkness in the segment, in the city that you find yourself in? And so right now we currently have 15 churches all around the city that we send information to, that help get information out in different ways, shapes, forms, and fashions. We can send them videos. We'll send some graphics. They can display them on their Sunday slides and announcements and bulletins and whatnot. And then from there, we've got 4 churches now that have actually began actual official foster care ministries. 2 or 3 of them are so far down that road that they've even got their own names, right? And so they're starting to do a number of things like parents' night outs, meeting needs. We've seen houses have yards and brush cleaned up. We've seen houses painted. We've got one that I was talking with the judge this week about going in and taking out some carpet for a bio mom. We've got just a number of ways that these churches are entering into this to meet just a variety of needs all around. Just us this week, right? We had somebody bring us just a couple frozen meals because I had 2 extra kids, and obviously... And you found that very helpful. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. We got home because we still have the bio kids, and so we get home from a normal rushed activity evening of sports basketball and volleyball and everything, and it's late, and it's now
2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, we're trying to get in bed at a decent time, and it's, what are we going to do? Oh, we've got a frozen meal. And so the recruiting and the retaining definitely work together, but that's kind of the big effort for us is we partner with churches, we push into churches to both raise up potential fosters, but to also strengthen some foundations so that those that are already fostering can continue to foster. And we like to say foster longer and stronger would be the hope there. So to piggyback on some of that, just thinking on where you were talking about the gospel impacting it, let's unpack the idea of the story matters. Our story matters. Your story matters to God. Do you want me to jump on that, or?
Yeah, go for it. I'll jump in a minute.
Jump in on some of that. And when
you're
we think
the pastor,
of,
you're the preacher.
That's probably why I should do this. When we think of your story mattering to God, I guess I should be able to speak into that. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is that He is the evidence of that fact, that your story matters to God, that from the foundation of the world, we preach this continuously. We go back to Genesis a lot, and we find it running throughout all of Scripture. But from the foundation of the world, He had planned to enter into the story of humanity itself. He didn't. Where we are today is not caught Him off guard, and he from the beginning planned to enter into that, into the beautiful and the broken. He planned to enter into the celebrating and the heartache. He planned to enter into each of these segments of society, each of these situations, by coming in the person of Jesus Christ. And He experienced all of that. He knows what it's like to walk the road as a human. And so His heart throughout the entirety of the Bible is for the alienated, for the forgotten, for the outskirts, for those on the edge of society that are there in the darkness. And He longs to bring them in. I think it's Romans that says that He met us, He went to us while we were yet enemies. While we were enemies of God, He reconciled us to Himself. He drew us in through the sacrifice of His Son. When we couldn't do anything on our own, we had tried everything on our own initiative, when life outside of our control even left us where it was, He entered into our story. And so each and every human to ever exist was and is created in His image with a purpose and a specific design that will display some aspect of His glory to the watching world. And so every story matters. That's where that starts. Your story matters. And so if our story matters to Him, should it matter to us?
Yeah. As the church? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think if we truly grasp that, I think if we really grasp that it mattered to Him to that degree, then moving into these situations and getting out of ourselves would be a lot easier than it is. I think.
I don't know if I'd say easier. It is difficult, but
it would happen more often than it does.
Yeah, I would say it for that reason, like you said. I'm not sure how people foster and do so without maybe some kind of faith in that. Does that make sense? Yeah. And especially without any kind of support or of the local church coming around them, because it is one of many ways in life, but one way that you just know, like, wow, I have zero control here. I am 100% dependent upon Him to get us through this. I cannot depend on myself to fix this and to make my own way. And so it's because of Him and the local church that allows us to, like you said, maybe make it easier in the sense of like, but to know, like, even if it's not easy, He's going to be there with me in it, and He's going to walk me through it, and He's leading me through it in the midst of it. I'm not alone. And so for me, like, just in this last couple days of having these two kids, I've been faced with this was probably worst possible time for me to say yes to
We've
taking
been busy,
a placement,
to say the least.
A very busy season, and yet I go, wow, but God's timing is perfect, and so if He's calling me to it and saying, but I'm asking you to do it right now, in what you see as your busiest season ever, with a lot of things on your plate and a lot of hard things going on around you, I'm asking you to say yes. And I'm going, okay, because I know that through it, I'm becoming a lot closer to Him and a lot more dependent upon Him, a lot less dependent upon myself. And that's right where I need to be. That's right where the church of God needs to be. Yeah. And so I think He uses foster care in a lot of ways to bring us to the end of ourselves to do that.
I think He absolutely does. And even in that, finding out even more so that our story matters to Him also.
Yeah. Yeah, that He sees me and knows, like, girl, I know what I'm asking of you. Trust me, I know. But please do it because I love you and because I want more for you, and I'm writing your story. This is part of it. And so,
You mentioned it's difficult to imagine walking this road without, essentially for us, that being our why, right?
Oh, it had to be. It had to be our why from the get-go. It had to be.
Yeah, our why was from the beginning, the gospel, and kind of seeing things through that lens. They say, though, that 60% of people get into foster care simply because they want to meet the needs of children. Right?
And that's great.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It is. But if we don't find something deeper, that's where we tend to be that statistic of 50% getting out.
We run out of steam real fast.
And so that's why we exist, right? To go, we want to help you discover, and maybe that is your why, but let's find a deeper why. Let's remind one another of that. And so there's a number of times in our support groups where somebody walks through, opens up just an entire conversation over dark, heavy situations that we are wading into in this arena. And we continually come back to, the kids are worth it. Their story matters. Why? Because God has called us into that, and He has showed us that He's willing to walk the darkest roads on our behalf.
Yeah, and we're there to help each other, remind each other of that why, to grasp onto it, because sometimes it's really easy to be like, I don't know why I'm still in this. I don't know what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And we remind him, we go, remember when, though, you said this, and that's your why, and it matters. You got to have that to hold on to.
So in the context of OHI, if we're talking about what does your story matters, the context that your story matters to God and to us, our hope with drawing that out and using even that terminology is to bring light to those stories that our God has placed right here. One of the reasons I want to do this podcast is that, to bring light to the stories that God has placed right here in our local community, with the intent of bringing hope out of darkness, with the intent of shining light into the forgotten places and letting the neglected really move into the spotlight, and in doing so, hopefully open more homes. We've talked about our story matters. We talked about how the local church, how we envision the local church. So let's talk just briefly on where we're going. So looking forward, what is it that we are hoping to do? What is it we're working towards? And so at Open Homes, we like the idea, or we use the terminology, I should say, that we are working towards a day when there will no longer be a list of children waiting for a family, but a list of families ready for children, right? That's kind of our longing. We want it to be in San Angelo, in Tom Green County, that when some poor kiddo gets pulled from their home at no fault of their own, that somebody within our own local community will open their doors and allow them to have a safe place to enter into, so that they don't have to leave everything behind. They don't have to leave their schools that way. They don't have to leave some other aspects of society. They don't have to leave just the view on the street when you're riding in a car feels familiar. At least there's something here that feels familiar, when in reality right now, about 60% of our kids leave Tom Green County, and region-wide, about 70 to 80% leave our region. And so that means
and go anywhere
across the state. The vast majority have to go all the way to Houston, right? I think Houston takes the majority of ours, many Abilene and up north.
And that just makes everything, like, for people who don't have a context for what that means, that just makes everything so much more difficult. I mean, obviously, but in the sense of, visitations with family members and parents, for caseworkers, I mean, my goodness, just the amount of travel and transport that has to happen for when kids are placed that far away.
We've got one family, right? We've got one family we did a respite a couple weeks ago for. The kiddos, the caseworker leaves here, drives an hour to pick up a parent, drives here, picks up the kids, drives all the way to Houston for a visitation, drives all the way back to drop the kids off, drives all the way to drop mom off or dad, whichever parent it was, and then back. So for that one caseworker, they've driven 8 hours. Plus. Times 2.
In a day.
In a day.
Because it wasn't an overnight visit. Yeah.
Because there's not a home here. Yeah. Open. Right? And so that's what we're talking about when we say we're longing for a day when there's a list of homes waiting for children with already open, so that when kids get pulled, right, there's no longer a waiting list of kids. Right now, just in our region, we need 41 more beds.
Yeah, and that's just for today.
That's just
today's kids.
For today, right? At any given time, there's over.
It'll change.
Yeah, there's over 100 kids in our city that are pulled. Yeah. There's over 100 kids right now, just in our context, that aren't at home, and that breaks that breaks my heart. And so that's kind of where we are. And so that's what we're looking for. The day that there will no longer be a list of children waiting for a family, but a list of families ready for children. And so as we look at that, let's talk about how somebody can get involved. What is it that you could do right now? Does anything come to mind for you? Is the only way to get in the foster game to actually foster?
It's
or
a very
to adopt?
good way, but not the only way. No, obviously, like we've talked about today, church involvement is going to look like a lot of different things. So it looks like bringing meals to people. It looks like doing respite care or babysitting. Respite care is a little bit longer, but babysitting for families.
We needed one right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I could use one. Anybody open? Or just like wraparound support.
Why is that? Expand on the babysitting respite real fast. What's the difference? Why do we need babysitting and respite providers?
So babysitting is really anywhere up to, I think, 12 hours to 72 hours.
So can anybody's grandparents just watch the 2 kiddos that we have right now?
Unfortunately not. So there's just, doesn't take much, but it does take some CPR certification and a background check and some little minor details that need to be done for someone to just babysit our foster kiddos. If we needed longer, if we needed actual respite care, so overnight care up to 14 days, then there's some more training involved in that. But that's how we first got involved. When we first started, before we started fostering, we were kind of like tiptoeing in and we're like, oh, let's just see how this works. We did respite care for a few families. I think we took 4 kids in or something at different times. And it was great.
2 kids a couple of times.
It was great for our kids. They kind of got a feel for it. They're like, oh, yeah, can we do this? Sure, yeah, this looks like fun. Yeah, we got extra friends around for a few days, It kind of helped us get our feet wet on could we do this? And so that could be something that somebody does. And I honestly think it's one of the best ways to get started in foster care is to even just try by just start babysitting and start doing respite care.
Yeah, because we can't just drop our kids off. No. We can't. Foster kiddos cannot just be dropped off with anyone. And so it makes it a little more difficult to find that. And so, but anyone, a lot of people can do just a background check and a fingerprint.
Most people do that for a job.
CPR.
So, I mean, if you can do that for your job, then I think you can, And a lot of people say that. And, that's probably one of we'll get into that too, probably over a few podcasts. Yep. You'll hear it come up time and time again because one of the biggest questions we get about it is just like, wow, or comments we get maybe is, wow, I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't do that. And it's like, can you raise kids? Do you have your own? Because you can. That's all you're doing. You're just raising kids right now. You're just giving them normal childhood as best you can. For me, I go back to that often because especially when days are hard, I go, man, this is just difficult. Maybe I don't need to do this anymore. And a lot of times, right, people ask, well, what about your bio kids? Yeah. And how does that affect them? And things like that. I'm going, man, every child deserves a chance at a normal childhood. We've taught some of our foster kids how to ride bikes. We've taught them how to skate. We've taken them camping for the first time. Some of our kids didn't even didn't know what a s'mores was.
Right.
Had never had that. And it's like, man, every kid needs to know what a s'mores is.
Absolutely.
So just giving them a chance. And vacations. We took them on vacations with us. And just like, hey, this is just part of doing life together. And so anyways, back to your original question, though.
So
lots of different ways you can
get involved. If you want to get involved, do you have to watch kiddos? Do you have to babysit? Do you have to respite? What are some other options?
You don't even have to do that. You can get involved in your church ministry even. A lot of our churches that are offering support group care actually do meals for our support group. Those that do that, we're so thankful for because then we don't have to eat pizza every Monday night.
Because I'm cheap.
But yeah, there's just a number of ways to get involved. So
I was talking with somebody this morning because I've heard it at home the last few nights. I can't remember who says it, but they keep saying it, that our yard needs to be mowed.
Oh, right? It really does right now. It really does.
And
I don't have time.
We have just not found the time to do it. And so there's little ways like that a lawn company could just go, you know what, I'm gonna mow the lawns for set of foster. I heard another story today of a church that adopted just a number of foster families and wrote letters. They would write letters every so often. And in the Lord's providence, they actually the main contact was out of town and in the midst of a crisis, was not able to get a hold of them. Mm-hmm. And yet the letters that the church had written hit and came in the mail on the exact day that this family was going into crisis. And so it was the way the Lord even used something like that to go, hey, your story matters, right? Mm-hmm. Not just to me, but to that entire church.
So you can offer, acts of service to families. And I would even say not even foster families, but kinship families and adoptive families. All of these are different aspects and different ways that people have invested into kids and invited them into their homes, and they need help and support just as much. And so lots of different ways to get involved, and one of the best ways to do that is to contact us at Open Homes Initiative, because we can get people connected to agencies and whatnot and kind of walk them through the process. And one of the ways that we kind of start people out on that foot is to even offer just a mentorship relationship with another foster family who's kind of walked that road, and be like, hey, we would love to pair you with a couple, a family who's done this before, and they can answer a lot of your questions and just really get your feet wet. And like, is this what the Lord's calling us to?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in hearing more about, knowing more about what we're doing, about getting involved with the foster system, about just learning some foster care statistics, if you want to get your church
can get involved,
any of those kind of things, let us know. You can follow links on this podcast. You can go to our Facebook page, Instagram page, website, any of those type things, and we'd love to hear you. All right. Thanks for listening. Hope this serves you well. If you'd like more information, or if you'd like to stay tuned, we do hope to be putting out additional podcasts in the future. So if you would subscribe so that you can be made aware when we produce additional content. And just remember, your story matters, both to God and to us.